Hello, and welcome to Alcohol-Free Radio. I'm your host, Chris Becker, and I'm excited to have you join us. Whether you are new to the amazing and growing alcohol-free community or someone who is already familiar, we hope you enjoy our program. This is where you can hear from some people making a real difference, whether as brewers or producers of amazing beverages, influencers in the community, authors, storytellers, and more. We aim to break it down and bring it all together. Our goal is simple: to build awareness about this great community and to help make alcohol-free fun, easy, and tasting great. So here we go. Enjoy. Hi there. This is Chris, and I am excited to introduce you to this upcoming episode for two reasons. One is we haven't been publishing episodes for a while, since last fall. So this is us coming back. So I'm excited about that. And then secondly, this one is myself and Dan Stiller, my co-founder, talking about Better Rhodes and how we work together on this and some of the challenges early on, things that we've been tackling, and also the industry in general. So for those of you who are listening, and hopefully you'll find this interesting, it gives you a bit more of the backstory. So with that, I will hand it over to the episode to start, and hope you enjoy. Take care. Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Chris Becker, and I'm glad you are here for the Alcohol-Free Radio podcast. This is a podcast I've wanted to do, or we've wanted to do for a while, here with Dan Stiller, my close friend and also CEO of Better Rhodes. We've known each other since, well, we'll tell that story in a second. But anyways, we thought it'd be fun to just get together and talk a bit about how we ended up where we are now with Better Rhodes, and obviously talk a bit about what we've seen in the alcohol-free community that we hope you find interesting. So Dan is also often the host of many of the episodes that we do here with Meet the Makers that we also publish here on the podcast. So welcome, Dan, to my show.
It's always your show, Chris. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Really happy to be here. And this is fun for Chris and I actually just to sit down and kind of rehash and revisit how we got here.
How did we get here? Who are you, and where did you come from, and how long have I known you?
It seems like forever. So Chris and I go way back. I think we met playing hockey. Did we meet playing hockey?
We met in the hockey changing room.
Yeah.
It's my memory.
Yeah.
And we both were wearing, some dating ourselves, but it was
penny loafers.
80, no.
Was it?
82.
Yeah.
83.
Yeah.
Polo shirts. Which were like fairly heavy, like collared, long sleeve shirts, but they had the Ralph Lauren. And I think we both saw that and knew we were both cool. What we thought was cool at the time. And
cool.
We're fairly average, solid, but average hockey players. As people who've reached out to us since we've kind of gotten some press with Better Rhodes, reminded us that at least we have found a career besides hockey. But that's how we met.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, we didn't realize how average we were. We were still naive enough to think that we were good. Yeah. But
and then what? So we were playing hockey, and then I think after that we went to different schools in Canada. You went to in Canada. There's two public school systems: Catholic and Protestant. No, Catholic and everybody else. And you went to the Catholic school system, and I went to public school. But we were both in and around the same small towns in Ontario, Southern Ontario, around Hamilton, and we just became closer and closer friends. Yeah,
it's kind of funny though, because our paths really they were always kind of running parallel, but they intertwined through hockey, and but we always had friends. Friends. But we always stayed in touch, and and then we ended up living together in Toronto after university.
That's right. So I went to U of T, you went to Western. Yeah. You ended up coming to Toronto because you were working. Mm-hmm. And I want you to tell a bit about the alternate vehicle, electric vehicle experience. But yeah, we were roommates in our 20s.
Yeah.
You were newly single. From a long relationship.
Yeah.
So was I think. And we were like single guys on the town in the 90s. So
no, but it always seemed like we were single together for like a month. Then you would start dating someone, and then you'd break up with them, and I'd start dating someone. So, which was good, because I think when we were both single, we were a bit of a mess. I remember when I first moved there, your advice was, don't say no to anything. Just go to And it was like, well, at the time it was good because I was out of a relationship and I was like, and maybe I was a little overly cautious, and you were saying like, go to every party, meet everybody. And I think it was great advice.
Interesting, because I also took that advice in a roundabout sort of way led to Better Rhodes.
Yes, there you go.
We definitely had some fun. And then, as you said, you met Beth, your wife.
Yeah.
And all I remember is one day I was in the apartment. I think the next day you were like, hey, listen, I'm moving out. And I think the day after, your stuff was gone.
No, that's not true.
Odds and some IKEA bits and pieces.
I left you everything.
That's right. You didn't give a shit. You were gone.
Well, no, because I was. So we were actually at the time we were both earning like respectable money.
We had disposable income. We had nothing else to do.
Yes, but we were both living on mattresses on the floor.
That's right. Yeah. Well, there were more alcohol. It's not cheap.
Which did make it difficult to actually keep a girlfriend. It's like, hey.
Right. So then, you moved out, and then let's talk about your arc. So you met your beautiful wife, Beth, and we were all in Toronto, but we all ended up where we are now in Connecticut, but with some windy paths. And I think yours is windier. So tell your story. To kind of where you got to and
it's so funny that
you through the various parts of the United States.
It's so funny because I think of it as this perfect arc.
Okay.
No, it's
just
not.
A long arc.
Long.
Yours is like it goes farther.
Arc. Yeah. Well, so I started in the automotive industry. I always loved automotive. Started working with Ford with their marketing leadership development program, and then just kind of advanced through the industry from company to company. Ended up running the national retail development program for Honda Motor Corps, so Honda Acura motorcycle power division, and that was really cool. But Chris was always on the entrepreneurial side, and I always loved that energy. And I had this opportunity to work with an electric car startup, and I remember like the first day going there, where it was kind of like this. Like it was a warehouse with a table in the middle.
Right.
No, there wasn't even a table. This is what I remember. The phone was on the floor, and I was coming out of traditional automotive with, people are just building bigger and bigger offices, and people were oh yeah, absolutely. I remember. Yeah. And like literally at Ford, people argued about their square carpet tiles, like how many carpet tiles they had. And like, what type of, you could tell how senior a person was by the type of garbage can they had. Ooh. Well, it was black. So black square was more senior than round green. It was, anyway.
We'll have to implement that.
Absolutely. So then here I am with this startup car company. The phone's on the floor, and I just was super energized by that. So left traditional automotive to do this electric startup called Zen, Zero Emission, No Noise, and head up their sales, their North American sales. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. We're dealing with a new technology, trying to redefine how people thought about electric vehicles. And, people would like, this is such a new technology. Well, electric vehicles were actually created before gas-powered vehicles.
Yeah.
And when you reverse the story and say, like, well, why would I want to plug in a car? It's like, well, why would you try to, like, if you could just plug your car in, if it started like that, if you just go home and plug your car in and power it, and then someone introduced this idea that, hey, I'm going to put this combustible fuel in your car, but it's too dangerous to keep in your house.
Pour dead animal oil into the side of it.
Yeah, but that's way too dangerous to keep by your house. So I'm going to move that station far away from any residential area. And well, then how do I get to it? Well, you're going to have to drive to that. So I'm going to have to spend my energy to get to my energy to come back. Like, it doesn't make sense, but we're so engaged in that narrative, and it became, you realized how ingrained that was. And I see a lot of parallels to what we're doing now. Like, alcohol is so ingrained in how we think of celebration and how we think of traditions, of rituals, of communion, so it's, I think there's a lot of really interesting parallels. But,
yeah. And that got you to the States.
Yes. Yeah.
How do we end up here?
That's a good question. How do we end up here? Actually with the States, Beth was doing a lot of work, consulting in the US.
What does she do?
That's a really good question as well.
Help our.
I know. How can I help your audience? She's she's really good at what she does. So she works in very, very complicated. She works in CPG retail. She worked for Walgreens, and now she works with Massage Envy. She's the CEO, so I'll say it. And yeah, she worked traditional retail, and now works with franchise model. So, anyways, she had this opportunity in the U.S. Zen was winding down. So we're like, let's just make the move. It's I think we've talked about it before, right? The U.S. is still it's such a much bigger market, so much opportunity.
Yeah, I was on a podcast and it's really about how have people live the American dream, and it's focused on where that can kind of really build upon that, and we get refocused on it. It was an interesting podcast. Anyways, I was kind of telling that story is, you grow up in Canada, you're nearby, you have a pretty interesting perspective on the United States. For me, you had some connections to the States with your family, I think with some of your uncles, and my mother's American. So a lot of my family's from the States. So always kind of was a bit more by national, at least in terms of mindset. But yeah, I think from a business standpoint, or from it's kind of like the national equivalent of going to New York.
Yeah.
You can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And I think that was always there. And a lot of people that we know, a subset of them did move to the States in terms of following their career, a fairly healthy number. And that's generally true of Canadians, I think, particularly in Ontario. So you got down, and Beth worked for Dwayne Reed and Walgreens, and that brought you through New York, New Jersey. And that's when I moved. I had been running a social media startup at the time in the aughts. Towards 2009, I moved to the States, partly because I was ready for a change, and I was the CEO of that company, and we needed to expand into the States to kind of continue growth. So I was down there basically pounding the pavement with media companies in the social media user-generated content space. And I just remember I parked my car in your garage in New Jersey for because I brought that thing down.
For like 2 years.
For 2 years. I'm sure that's annoying. And then you guys moved on to Chicago. Yeah. And I stayed in New York, met my wife, and we lived there until about 5 years ago. And who's now my co-parent, great co-parent. And she was in PR and doing some great stuff. And I was finishing up that and got back to consulting and started a technology consulting company. But eventually we made our way to the Shoreline in Connecticut, which is where Better Rhodes is based, which is a great spot about halfway between New York and Boston. And now we're basically in New York and here. But this is world headquarters, as we say. You had then moved on to Scottsdale. So pick us up after moving from Chicago.
Yeah, so moved to Chicago. And I got this great gig teaching. So I always thought that after I retired, I'd become a professor and teach. I always enjoyed that. But I had this opportunity while I was in Chicago. So I started teaching at Concordia University in Chicago. And then Beth had this opportunity in Scottsdale. And I'm like, who would ever move to the desert? Like that, it just seems such a foreign concept to me. And then we went to visit it in February, and I played around to golf, and I'm like, I'm good. This is not bad at all. So then we moved to Scottsdale. I'm still there. Love it. It's a great place to live, great place to raise my kids. I've got 2 boys, and but then Chris kind of gave me this call one day. We'd always talked about doing something together, and we had a bunch of great ideas. Mine more kind of sales and marketing related. Chris is more kind of digital related. And this was kind of one that brought everything together and kind of both built on our strengths.
Yeah. And I think you asked some good questions, because for me, it's a bit of a smoother story in terms of telling the origin story of the problem I was trying to solve for myself, and then how you can build upon that. And then thinking of it from a digital standpoint, that lent itself to the e-commerce aspect, although live event and some things we're hoping really kind of start to flourish in the second half of 2021 is definitely a piece of that. But the idea of community, more than just selling all these great products, is a key piece of what Better Rhodes is, and a core piece, but also talking about what's happening. And as the name of the company implies, Better Rhodes is different people have different roads that may bring them to where alcohol-free touches a part of their life, whether that's complete abstinence or you might be pregnant, or, you might be getting your buzz from cannabis, if that's part of it, or mindful drinking. There's so many. That's really the core of the sense of the company, both product and content, and the name really is intended to represent that. Which, I don't often tell it, but I'll just quickly, the Better Rhodes, the reason it's RH, which people ask a lot, is in Old English, Rhodes means clearing in the woods. And on the island of Rhodes was the mythical statue Colossus, which is the Greek god Helios, god of the sun. So this idea that these roads can lead you to a better place, a clearing, an opening in your mind, in whatever that means to you, and that it brings light. So that was kind of that was the underlying arc. But then you were kind of coming in where I was more talking about it as a business. Yeah. Hey, this is a business, alcohol free. And with a lot of people, it's like, well, it's still very small, very nascent, very young. So it was fun. I don't say fun. It was challenging and interesting to engage in that conversation with you on this, like we'd had about other ideas in the past. And then what was different about it was I was starting to really build it out more. It kind of had gotten past a few hurdles that many of my ideas don't get past. And then you and I were starting to have much more meaningful conversations. And then, for me, the idea that getting people to think differently about something they think they know well, i.e. gasoline-powered cars and electricity, i.e. alcoholic products and alcohol-free, the ritual of alcohol-free in the similar experience, for me, kind of resonated. And I am a few things, but one of the things I am not is I have no head for marketing or sales or anything like that. So I think that this conversation about Better Rhodes, I think, really exemplified and brought into full relief where I thought our skills were. And I was like, you got to come on.
Yeah. It's funny that to me, I didn't see it right away. Like I looked at it as, okay, so we're just a reseller of products. So I'm trying to go head to head with Amazon. I don't think I fully appreciated the community aspect of it. And one of the things, this is an interesting cue that I just recall it now, was one of the things that helped me from the community perspective was I was a stay-at-home dad when we first moved to Chicago. And it was interesting because there were other stay-at-home dads and we knew who each other person was, but we never talked about it. And like you'd see all these women commune and everything, and all the stay-at-home dads would just kind of be on the periphery, but would never hang out together. We never talked about it. Like it was almost like this embarrassment, this shame. And we were doing it all for the right reasons. And but it was just something we'd never talk about. And then I thought, okay, there was a parallel here that people were making positive choices, doing it for the right reason, but it was still socially unacceptable. Wow, it's on the periphery. Like everyone would understand, like, oh, I totally get why you're making that decision, but then no one would want to talk to you about it.
Like that guy's not drinking. But that guy's doesn't work.
But then no one else wanted to talk to you about it either. So that to me was this interesting parallel. And then we started to build the business model out we had to be more than resellers. We had to talk more than just the product. It had to be about the experience and about the engagement and about the education, and really celebrate how vast this market really could be. And I think that's where the things, at least for me, really started. And we looked at a bunch of different, like we looked at starting our own brewery. We looked at a bunch of different things, just trying to find out where we could make it work.
There was a lot of pieces of this in terms of thinking that this was going to drive towards developing a product, and the e-commerce was a way to kind of collect data. Whereas I think we've now moved much more into the idea that people are looking for a curated experience for direct to consumer in this area. And and that really helps bring the content and the community piece, which, to your point, is people for their own reasons can be sometimes attracted to this conversation and interest in what products are out there when they feel it's safe and accessible and permissible and and done in a communal way. And I think we strive to do that. We need to do a lot more, and that's big objectives for this coming year. But in terms of how we can help facilitate or moderate or participate in the conversation. So that, I think, really highlighted, what we were doing had value and focus in and of itself. The idea of looking at where there might be product gaps or opportunities is still out there, but that really kind of flourished. And, I think at the beginning, it was just, you agreed to come on board through this, I guess it was the summertime, right?
Mm-hmm.
I came to Scottsdale, and I went to Vegas for a meeting or conference or something. And then that was a separate trip. Then there was another trip, and then you and I drove to LA.
Yeah.
Which was kind of funny because that's where the idea, the basic idea had started at the coffee shop in Hermosa Beach, Starbucks. I try sometimes I just say coffee shop, but it was a Starbucks. And we met up with Billy, who's a founder, who's bartender, Billy the bartender, and we were at Hermosa Beach because I was there and my kids were there and some family. And it was kind of that was when I kind of see that we moved from idea and talking and, kind of doing the basic kind of spade work to, okay, this is happening. And it was from that point, that was the summer of 2020, the pandemic was in full force. So e-commerce was always a piece of what we were doing, but it brought it into the complete forefront, that was the part of the piece of it. And we've been doing some testing with the site. And then September came around, we made some commitments on bringing in some folks onto the team to really kind of start making it move fast. And that led us into the fall where we were, really kind of pushing. And, in a way, we're only 6 months old from that point of view.
Really?
And in terms of actually, dealing with customers and getting out there and really starting to, this is taking up every waking moment. It's like, it's 7 o'clock in the morning here. We're here before anyone else gets here so we can do this. And you're here every other week, every 3 weeks. It's really only 3 months old.
Yeah.
What's that been like?
Yeah. So I was still teaching online, still teaching the courses I had at Concordia. I was working on my PhD, and this was really kind of
in what?
Sales.
I'm not bad. It's my fault.
No.
What's your PhD about?
Yeah. So we'll get to that. But I was teaching sales and marketing and if they say if you can't do it, teach it. So now I actually had to go and prove it. But it was kind of seen initially, like before as a side of the desk thing. And part of it was, I'll be honest, was, I get to that stage in my life where I'm looking around and Chris is my best friend. And I felt this was a great opportunity to spend time and just hang out and kind of just rekindle that friendship. And as it started to evolve, then I started stepping back from my teaching.
That was not my objective.
No, I know. I realize that. Now I feel bad admitting that. But and then I started stepping back, and things really started to take off. And that's where we started to. I think we really started to pull into that space where we were speaking to a bunch of different communities. We started to find out that that these communities were speaking about us. Like I know the first time we did a panel with Sands Bar, you were kind of the new kid on the block. Yeah. And then 3 months later, I did a panel and everyone wanted to talk to us. Because we could speak across, like everyone else had their particular voice about beer or about
their product,
spirit.
Whatever it happens
product
to
focused,
be.
In that segment. And now we could come to the party and speak about all segments, speak about where the community was growing. We had all this great data. And I think that's your digital focus really helped because we've always been focused on the customer data. What does that teach us? Where is the market growing? But then also, who is our customer? Who are they? Why are they on this journey? So that's been like the growth has been unbelievable. Do you want to talk to the growth? Like, I think we can brag a little bit.
Yeah. So the story basically, we were chugging along and, I always told myself, and I think it's largely true, that this is still a very minuscule market. But when I was first looking at the business back when I was kind of evaluating where this might go, then I had my consultant, hat on and was looking at kind of the demographics, millennials drinking less, just the demographic aging population. I call that our doctor's orders segment, which is as you get older, and at least I can speak for myself and my friends, they're like, yeah, it's like if I drink too much, you hear it time and time again. If you're, if someone in their 50s, let's say, or older, it takes them 2 or 3 days to recover. Like if they cross that line and they're like, whoa, like as opposed to in your 20s, you bounce out of bed. So there's, for all different, there was a lot of demographics and just data pointing towards, and then, the beer companies saying that by 2025, they want 20% of, InBev and Molson Coors, the two biggest, want 20% of their revenue to come from alcohol free. Plus they're investing in cannabis and all kinds of other stuff. Kind of like you saw, with car companies starting to venture out into different segments. But, still 99 times out of 100, if I was talking to somebody about this, they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why would I want gin without alcohol? You can't make a martini with that. And, then it's a fairly nuanced conversation. You're like, well, you're right. You can't. But blah, 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 blah. There's rituals you can do and there's other drinks and so on and so forth. And that actually creates a lot of texture to the conversations that can be had in the community, because there's a lot of people in, the bartender mixology world that see this as kind of a new and growing area. The idea that you can create ritual experiences with liquids that doesn't have to be alcohol based, because alcohol in and of itself has its own flavor. So it has a flavor profile right from the start. So that really kind of became there as we got into the fall, and I think maybe with the lockdown, people's mindfulness about almost everything changed.
Yeah.
The time they spend with their family, the amount of time they spend at work, the amount of time they spend in a car, the amount of time they spend drinking. Like even yesterday, there was the University of Michigan came out with a report saying inflammation of the liver is up 30% in females in this last year. So I think people read that. It's not just me reading that. So people, this is just one of many topics: meditation, health, cooking at home, exercising. I think this is just another, even maybe a smaller piece of that. And then we were covered in the New York Times in December about this space and in the food section, which is also taking notice. And that really kind of kicked us off. And then Dry January, which is I'll call it a tentpole event, started in the UK, but now it's growing here. Really kind of was our liftoff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then we started building that momentum. And I think I'm just going to jump back to this kind of understanding of the market. Like one of the things that was important to me was looking at this, like people were looking at the alcohol-free space, like people were looking at the vegan space 10 or 15 years ago. And the idea that, well, you're just taking meat off the plate instead of what are you introducing onto the plate. And I think that's we're evolving out of that conversation of we're just taking alcohol out of these products. And we're saying, okay, well, what are we actually bringing to the table? And the products have great adult taste profiles. Like they're really interesting products, and they're not all like a whiskey. Some of these products are completely different, completely unique. And it's just like vegan food. And I'd say the next parallel is within that whole space is we kind of want to be what Whole Foods is to organic. We take organic out of that kind of small organic or vegan out of that small section in the grocery store that was kind of always pushed off to the side.
That's right. And now it's not. It's not its own special section.
And now it has its own special marketplace, right? Yeah. You'll go into Whole Foods, everything's going to be organic. It's going to be vegan friendly, vegetarian friendly. And that's what we are, right? We're this great marketplace where people can come in and everything's going to be friendly. Everything's going to be geared towards you. Yeah. You don't have to give up anything. You don't have to sort through anything. You don't have to excuse yourself. So yeah, I think it's, and people are latching onto that. It's not just about, and what's awesome is right now in the pandemic, people are just buying for themselves. But as soon as this is over, people are going to be hosting and celebrating, communing around this product. Yeah. For others. Yeah. So I think that's what as we're talking, I'm looking into our fridge of all this different product from around the world. And I remember us starting and it was like, we were begging people to sell product. Okay.
Yeah. This is just the office fridge.
Yeah.
So don't
This is not the warehouse. This is not that warehouse. It's the fulfillment center. Yeah. But we were begging people to sell to us, and now we're inundated from product around the world, which is so cool. I totally took the story off in a different direction.
No, I think that's good because we are running out of time from a podcast segment perspective. So yeah, and what we're finding now is, I thought, going right back to the beginning when I was searching for those first few beers, I'm like, okay, I found them. Mm-hmm. This is it.
Yeah.
Be fun to share this. I'm sure there's some more.
Yeah.
But give me another day and I'll bottom it out.
Yeah, find it out.
And it's amazing. And the only explanation I have is they're actually coming to market faster than we're finding them.
Yeah.
Because it's been another year and a half, and we're still finding them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's amazing. And the other thing that we're finding is, like, take the taste profile of some gin alternatives have changed so much over the last 6 months even. The number seems to be speeding up, and the innovation of what the flavors are and the branding and the positioning is also speeding up. So, which makes for an exciting and coming into, things opening up and us having plans for, wanting to engage in restaurants and with bartenders and live events. Like we want to be able to bring alcohol free to beer festivals and wine and cheese festivals, and obviously just to be a part of that, so people can see what is out. Even the wines, like a lot of people, often talk about, it's a challenge to come up with an alcohol free wine, and just like this isn't about trying to make a blind taste test replacement for a martini for a gin alternative. You're not probably trying to get a sommelier to, try to stack a alcohol-free wine up against some award-winning Chablis or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. And the idea that these products and flavors can stand on their own, I'm seeing in wine as well. So, and in all the other segments, some of the whiskeys that are coming out, and there's a lot of small entrepreneurs with like one product or two products, a lot of ready to drink. So it's going to be a interesting 2021 and a fascinating 2022.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's we went from trying to find someone or trying to find product to now we have to think of, okay, how do we celebrate this product on the site? We're running out of room, and there's just so much. Like Chris was saying, there's more product every day, more product than we can actually discover. So the product is getting better. This is like the craft brew industry. What was it, 15, 20 years ago? It changed the way we looked at beer. And we're seeing the exact same thing. And the change is not going to come from the big manufacturers. It's going to come from this small craft artisanal creations that look beyond traditional alcohol. And that's, I think, where the real exciting part is. It's not Diageo trying to recreate Tenkari or, a whiskey, Jack Daniel's coming out with Jack Daniel's Light. It's going to be these really interesting, small craft people who are creating new flavor profiles, like completely different. Right now out of Kentucky or out of Oregon, Wilderton. Like it's a fun space to be part of. Super exciting. All the energy I think you'd ever want in any business, and probably of any of the businesses, and we consider some crazy businesses. This is more exciting than I ever imagined it would be.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it, and I'm glad you're here.
Well, thanks. I'm glad I'm here too.
All right.
Someone's going to keep you straight.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, thank you for coming to the episode and listening. And I hope you enjoyed it. And this is Alcohol Free Radio from Better Rhodes. Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Alcohol Free Radio. We'd love to hear from you. Send us a message on social media or through email at hello@betterrhodes.com. Great to be here with you all together. Take care.